Welcome to the Eye on Annapolis Local Business Spotlight. There are thousands of locally owned businesses in the area, some small and some large. Some you may know and others you don't. But one thing they all have in common is a great story, and we want to share it with you. Join us every Saturday as we talk to the founders, the owners, and the managers of local businesses you have come to know and love, and those you will come to know and love. Now here's your host, John Frenay, with this week's Local Business Spotlight.
Last time I was in this, I would say warehouse. I don't even call it a warehouse. It was bustling with people, but we're talking with Beth Kilmer, who is the owner, proprietress. That sounds like a fancy term.
Oh, I like that.
Proprietress of Sage Vintage, which is located at 1805C Virginia Street. And that's, I like to say it's like the old lady named streets of Annapolis Design
That's
District.
right.
You have to skip Margaret and you got Virginia.
That's right. You're right. I had never thought about it like that.
Gladys and Wilma. I don't know. But you are part of the Local by Design, say conglomerate, but I mean, there's several. Local by Design, first of all, for everyone that probably knows me, is one of my favorite stores down on Main Street. It's wonderful for gifts and Christmas and people that you don't know what to get for. It's awesome. But they also have a location in the Annapolis Mall, but they have Local by Design at the Gallery, which is on Margaret Avenue. And recently they expanded the area to Virginia Street, another big, I don't know how big this place is.
Yeah.
And you are a huge part of it. And this is such a cool, funky little...
Thank you. Thank you. Welcome.
Well, Sage Vintage, how long have you been around? I mean, obviously, this has only been here, 7 months?
Right. So 6 months I've been here in this space. So Local by Design at the Gallery was here on Margaret Avenue. And then space opened up. Basically, the buildings back up to each other. And so this space opened up. And the owner of Local by Design said, well, you know, I'm thinking about taking these spaces. Would anybody be interested? And I raised my hand and I'm like, yeah, I would love to be over here. At the time I was over sharing a very small space in the Margaret side and we call it the Margaret side and the Virginia side just because it's separated by an alley. Right. We're calling it a courtyard. Right. Thank you. We're creating like just kind of like a cool sort of festival experience out in the courtyard. Where you can just walk from one building into the next. And we have one of our local artists painted a beautiful mural out there. So there's a good photo wall. We have a lot of plans for things that are going on out there. But to go back to Local by Design, it's kind of like a co-op. And so what happens is we have at this location, we have 25 different vendors who are here who all operate their own businesses under the umbrella of Local by Design. So
that's very cool.
Isn't that cool? It's a co-op kind of thing. So we can all have our own shops and our own businesses
and
here.
your own identity and everything else.
Identity here, but then, yeah.
Well, as I look around here, you've got such cool furniture, and it really does bring me back to my childhood, which really sort of pisses me off that you're calling it vintage. Okay,
let me tell you, it's really hard to walk in when I go picking and I'm in a thrift shop somewhere and I see my childhood toys labeled as vintage. That's like the most horrific thing to wrap your head around. It's like, wait a minute, I had that record player, or I had that Barbie, or I had that whatever. And it's like, what do you mean it's vintage?
Similar when I go out walking, I'll see a car that has like an historic plate. I'm like, I need to key that car or something like that.
Wait a minute, I drove that car when I was 19. Yeah.
Hey, I got up this morning and I was able to put 2 feet on the ground. So we'll call it
all good.
We'll call it a win. But this is really neat. So what's your background? I mean, how did you get into retail? Was it, bad drugs or something?
Well, you might think that by looking around. I don't know, but I have always loved antique and vintage furniture and things. And so over the years and decades really of doing different things, I've always in some iteration been doing this. And so when it came time that I had the opportunity to be here at Local by Design and be in this space, I decided that I wanted to just sort of turn it into this mid-century modern kind of experience for people. And for me, I kind of cut my teeth on the period antiques, like the really fine pieces. And like 1,000 years ago, I was at a shop called Antiques along the Boulevard in Savannah Park. And I ended up having rented out almost all the space with the exception of like the jewelry counter, who was operated by the owner, and like a wall of glass on the back that the vintage glass guy did. But otherwise, I had the spaces filled with vintage, or I should say period antique pieces, really nice pieces. And then the crash happened. And so nobody was buying anything like that anymore. And I closed the business and then kind of came back around to it again because I felt like I really just needed a creative outlet. I was doing other things and decided that I will kind of pretty much lose my mind if I don't have a creative outlet. And so to me, this was something that I wanted to get back into again. And when I started here at Local, I was doing a little bit more rustic, different inventory. And I had been doing there's a big show called Luckett's that's out in Luckett's that's out in Berryville, Virginia. It's a huge, big thing. If you've never been, you need to go. It's a lot of fun. It's a 3-day festival, basically, of vintage things. And it is at the Marion County Fairgrounds. It's 10,000 people over 3 days.
Oh, wow.
And so I would do this, and we would like rent the big box truck and haul all of our stuff out, and we would be there for 5 days, and we would, set up and sell and load up what was left and come home. And it was fun. I loved it. I have a vintage Airstream that I bring out there, which is really cool. And, I brought that kind of stuff here into Annapolis to sell, and it really wasn't taken off. And so I'm like, well, okay. Well, what else can I do that's vintage that I think would appeal to the Annapolis area? And then I realized, well, wait a minute, nobody's really doing good mid-century modern here in this town. You can't find it in this town if you want it.
Well, define mid-century modern for me.
So mid-century modern is like...
It's a buzzword.
Yeah, it is a buzzword. It's become a buzzword, which is fascinating to me. But basically, it's anything that was made mid-20th century.
Okay.
So at that time, our country was coming out of the war, and there was a movement towards more organic, clean lines that were more simple, that focused on the family and the nuclear family, the, what's important in life kind of stuff.
Okay.
And so the things that came out of that time period were also, they needed to be affordable. And so they were mass produced, but the designers were looking at it in terms of, okay, how can we utilize the technology that allows us to mass produce furniture and sell it to the middle class, but also make it beautiful and functional, but not too frilly, like a lot of the older antiques and time periods where people think like, oh, frillies and scrolls and yada, yada, yada. But if you look around here, you'll see curves, but you won't see frilly. And to me, like mid-century for me really hits that sweet spot of like.
So is that like the 40s to the 70s-ish?
So technically it's a little tighter than that. Technically it's really in the 1950s. But for me personally, I am in the late 40s to 50s to 60s. And I will creep into the early 70s because it's just groovy stuff and I love it and it's a lot of fun. And to me, that's still like mid-centuries because I'm older.
I look around and I get a Brady Bunch vibe.
Oh, cool.
To a degree.
Yeah. Nobody's ever said that before. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, you would see the orange kitchen or the green bathrooms, the avocado appliances, which were all in there. And it is very funky, and I appreciate that there are no doilies here.
No doilies.
I have an aversion to doilies. That was out of my first marriage. I was moving forward. I said I am a doilyless person going forward. Yeah. But I mean, you sell pretty much everything. I mean, I'm looking around on the walls. You've got giant art pieces of art. You've got small pieces of art. You've got some candles. You've got furniture, carpets.
I love vintage rugs. I'm so passionate about vintage rugs. So this is another thing that people don't, this is not really mid-century, but I blended in because they were all made, most of them were made mid-century. Some of them are actually antiques. So there's some in here that are over 100 years old that are beautiful.
One thing I will say is that, I mean, you talked about how they had to manufacture these and they had to figure out how to do this and everything else. I mean, the manufacturing, which is very disappointing to me, is that as we've moved on from mid-century to current times, we've lost the quality in manufacturing
100%.
That's there.
100%.
I'm sitting here on, I don't know whether it's real ostrich, but it looks like ostrich chairs. But I mean, these are
how cool, right?
These are probably 1950s.
They are. And they were mass produced and they were considered, just what a middle class family would have.
And they're not wobbly. I mean, they're 100. They're 50,
don't make me that old.
70 years old.
Right.
But I mean, this is not a and I don't mean to diss on IKEA because they've got its place in the world, but I mean, this is not an IKEA piece of furniture that's, got some kind of a hex nut that's going to fall apart.
You don't need an Allen wrench to put it together.
It's true. It's true. They come pre-assembled.
Imagine that. It's actually already assembled. Yeah. So to me, this is, I'll often say that, like, IKEA, I mean, yes, I love IKEA too, and it absolutely has its place.
Meatballs are awesome.
And sometimes I walk through IKEA and I think, like, between this and the Container Store, it would solve all my problems, But
including that full wallet.
Right. But at the same time, I know that 100 years from now, there isn't going to be an IKEA frame. It's all compressed particle board. It's going to fall apart, and it won't be here. It won't be here in 50 years or 75 years or 100 years. But this stuff is still, this stuff is still here. It was mass produced, but it was quality mass production. It was not produced over in, Southeast Asia.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, it
just wasn't. Yeah. And so I think one of the things that is, like, I'll take Pyrex for an example here. So there's a huge, big boom in, you know what Pyrex is?
Oh, I absolutely do. And I've been warned never to put it into the dishwasher. Wait a minute, Pyrex?
Pyrex can go in the dishwasher.
No, that's the measure. That's the glass measuring cups. Yeah. What are the ones that have the different kind of bowls?
Yeah. Well, so see those over there. Those are Pyrex. See the blue and the white.
But those can't go in the dishwasher.
I would not put those in the dishwasher because they're now very valuable. That was my point. Is that's the kind of stuff that was made for the everyday kitchen in the 50s and the 60s. Right. Like, everybody had it. It was no big deal. It would be like your Rubbermaid. Okay. And now some of them, because the patterns are different, people collect all the patterns and they collect all the colors in those patterns. Some of those bowls are going for $400 a piece.
There's a store in Harvard Grace.
Yes. They're having a big Pyrex Vintage Festival next weekend, I think. So
my girlfriend goes up there all the time. We go there to do it. Yeah. And one time
I'll be up there next weekend.
Early on in the relationship, one time, it almost ended over this because I did grab one of those big Pyrex bowls that her mother had given her and was headed to the dishwasher. And it was just like, okay.
I've had those moments. Those moments have actually happened in my very house where I pretty much had a meltdown because, like an aluminum colander went through the dishwasher. But anyway, so that stuff was mass produced for everybody. You could buy it in the grocery store. And now some of them are $400 a bowl.
Yeah, that was probably S&H green stamps.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, right. And I'm like, my mother would be rolling over in her grave, like her Pyrex. And when I think about when I cleaned out my parents' home, I donated so much of this stuff because it was 15 years ago. I had no idea that mid-century would be having a moment and I would want it all back.
Well, that brings up a good point now, is that most of the kids today, and I say kids, I mean the young adults that are moving out of the houses and starting their own lives and getting their own places and everything else, it's like they don't want anything reminiscent of their childhood, your parents' childhood, furniture, artwork, or anything like that. I'm finding that.
You think so? I find that there's the 20-somethings, the 30-somethings, and into the early 40s tend to be really loving this time period for some reason. Now, they don't have the history with it that we do, but they come in here and they're like, nothing against Pottery Barn or Crate and Barrel. I love those stores, but there's a fatigue level. Like, I feel like it's saturated for a lot of these kids, and they want something that looks different and yet is affordable. So to me, one thing that was very important to me when I opened my shop was that I had a variety of price points. I want it to be something where, the young adult who's coming in, who wants to furnish their first place, whether it's an apartment or their first home or whatever, can afford quality.
And drop $25 on a centerpiece for a table or something like that. And
so I have pieces in here at a very affordable price point, and I have pieces in a sort of a mid-level price point, and then I have very high-end collectible, covetable pieces that serious collectors are going to be like, oh my God. That's like, so I have a room divider over there that's Kent Coffee Perspecta. And that's like the holy grail for people that collect Kent Coffee Perspecta. So that's in here. If you're in your mid-20s, you're not going to be able to afford that piece. And I understand that. However, the dinette with the 4 chairs over there is very affordable if you're interested in it. And not only is it affordable, it's different than what everybody else has. And It's got that sort of energy about it that just is like, it's cool and it's funky. And it's going to be around forever. Like that will move with you.
You jump back to the quality again.
Absolutely. The quality
that will survive that U-Haul.
Absolutely. Like, and what are the, I mean, honestly, again, nothing against IKEA, but how many moves is it really going to survive?
Oh, true.
Right? Because it's just not built to withstand that. I mean,
I've done several moves for my kids and stuff like that. Yeah. And there's some, I don't know whether it's IKEA or whoever, but some other bookcase or something like that. It just doesn't make it.
God forbid it get a drop of rain on it too.
It's been wobbling for 300 miles and it's ready to fall.
Oh, I know. And, so it just can't handle that kind of stuff. And so part of what I want to do is make things that are beautiful and functional, affordable. And so I'm always on the lookout for things that I can offer to younger adults that give them that sort of funky, different feel, but at the same time, it will be affordable and it will last. It will be there for them as long as they need it. And one of the cool things that happened, I want to say like before the summer, I had a fantastic dinette with the Formica top and the chrome edging. Mm-hmm. And it had the chairs with it were not vinyl and chrome. They were wood and chrome. And I'd never seen a set like that before. So the way I pick is really like when you go searching and hunting for treasure, basically. Sure. So the way I pick is like, if something just like, I don't know what it is, it just jumps out at me. And I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. I want to have that for my shop. So I brought it, I brought it in here and I set it up. And the first thing that I noticed was that people of a certain age would come in and run their hand across the top of it. They were touching it. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. And then they would say to me, oh my God, this was in my mom's kitchen. This is the table I grew up at.
Sure.
And I was like, yeah. that's like, and the feelings that evokes and the energy that evokes is what I'm here for 100%. Yeah, and then the buyer of that dinette set, incidentally, was a young woman who was buying her first home, and her mom was in here with her, and she bought it for her as a housewarming present. And I was like literally tearing up because I'm like, you're the person I had in mind when I found that table. When I found that table. And I'm like, your friends are going to come over and go, oh my God, where did you get this? And you're going to sit around it and you're going to have meals and you're going to play cards and it's going to move with you. And it might end up in your family room someday, but then your kids are going to be out, and it's like, that is what I am here for.
It's funny. I saw a video and sort of similar to that where a house was for sale and the woman came into the realtor, was like, it was all sort of set up, but it was like, she's like, this is the house that I grew up in. And it's, she's been now, 40 years or whatever it may be. And, some things have changed and modernized and everything else. And her husband had put a down payment on the house without her knowing it. It was the whole big, but it was just the memories, as you said, you're running the hand across, the memories come back and it's like, wow, this was such a great place. Okay, no, it didn't have the granite countertop, but but this island was here. This was, I split my chin on that.
Right.
Whatever it may be. It's really very, really very neat. And
that's, to me, that's kind of what it's all about.
Well, do you remember, go back a little bit to the Pyrex. Do you remember, I think it was called Corel dishes.
Corel and Corningware. Mm-hmm.
I remember my mom was so happy when she got those. She said, because they were unbreakable.
Yep.
And I proved that was incorrect. I remember showing her friend, I was like, you picked it up. I said, hey, these things are unbreakable. And
it does not mean they can bounce off the floor, John.
Well, I turned around, I dropped on the floor and it just shattered right there. I said, okay, well.
It's like the indestructible dog toy. Let's prove that theory.
Right. You haven't met my dog yet, right?
All right, you haven't met my dog.
Well, you talked about going to this festival in Virginia, and you talked about seeing different things. Where do you get? And then the really cool thing about Sage Vintage is that this has all changed since I came here 2 weeks ago. Right. Things are coming and going, and this is. I've got one friend that will argue with himself for months about buying a $2.99 app on his phone this is not the place for him.
No. And that makes me sad. That breaks my heart when people come in and they're like, oh my God, it's gone. And I said, what are you talking about? Which piece? And oh, that brown leather chair. I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And I didn't come in and get it. I'm like, oh gosh.
And it's not like you can pick up the phone or tap onto the computer and say, okay, well, we can get another one for you.
Right. And that is something that everybody needs to know. If you see it, you really need to make a decision fairly quickly. I never put pressure on anybody, but you need to understand that it might not be here the next time you come in, because...
Will you hold something?
For
a couple days?
Usually I don't, just because I have so many people coming in and looking, and I kind of, learned the hard way that I can hold something and then that person never materializes and I've lost the possibility, perhaps.
That's fair.
Of selling it. So, I will certainly take information from people if somebody is interested in a piece. And I did have one, I had a big cabinet that somebody really wanted, but they couldn't quite pull the trigger on. They were a little nervous to do. And I said, well, give me your phone number if anybody else looks at it. It was one of our market weekends here at Local by Design. So there's a lot of people coming through. And I said, if anybody else shows any interest in it, I'll give you right of first refusal, but you need to be here as soon as, basically after you hang up the phone, right?
Sure.
But otherwise, no, I can't really put holds on things.
I mean, that's fair. I mean, I think,
because the inventory is changing a lot too. So as fast as it leaves, something else comes in, and one of the things that I love to do is between each big market weekend sale that we have here, I will completely redesign and restyle the whole space. So folks will come in and be like, oh my God, is this new? No, it wasn't new. It was here the last time. It's just in a different place.
Do you guys get new ownership?
Right. But then there's that plus the combination of inventory turning over. So I sell something. And one of the things you learn at Luckett's is if something big sells, you have to be ready to fill it and redesign everything and rejig everything really quickly, like on the fly, because otherwise you have this gaping hole
in your, yeah.
And that doesn't look so good. So I kind of cut my teeth on that. So when something here sells, I'm ready to either reorganize or pull something from storage real quick and then come just like design a completely new scenario.
Well, it's constantly evolving, it seems. I mean, it's just, if I buy the gumball machine that's here, I put it in my car and I'm sure Beth is in the back saying, okay, well, what can I put here? I'm going to put
Exactly. Or I'll do something else. And to me, that's part of the fun of the challenge of this space is to keep it fresh and to keep just doing new things all the time, because you can't be, at least I can't be a one-trick pony doing this. I really just need to be able to think on my feet and redesign and show. And I think that's a good example for people who come in that might not have this particular skill set, to come in and be like, I don't exactly know what to do with this piece in my house. How would I do it? Not only am I showing you a way how to do it, but I'm showing you in real time how quickly you can reorganize things and still make it look good and still make it work and still make it flow. And your house doesn't have to look like a Pottery Barn catalog all the time.
Like sometimes it shouldn't.
And it shouldn't. And again, nothing against Pottery Barn. I have friends that they love it and that's their thing. And I think I was probably one of those people in my early 20s. But it is something that expresses who you are. And so if you find a piece that you love, put it in your home, and that tells people who you are. That tells your story.
I agree. I mean, I think for a while, our decor went to, early American farmhouse, and you had the barn doors.
I had a very big moment.
And the slate color blue was huge, and absolutely everything. And I'm saying in this area, a lot of beachy kind of motifs. But this is really something that can, as you said, really identify who you are and set your own little.
Because I feel like it's, you're not boring. Why should your home be? It should.
That's a great line. You're not boring. Why should your home be?
Right. I mean, you're an individual, so your it telegraphs your personality and what's important to you, and it's a way of self-expression. What you put in your home is a way of self-expression, and it shouldn't matter what anybody else thinks about that. And some people will come in here and they'll find a piece that they love, and they'll say, "Oh, but I don't know if it goes with my other things." And the first thing I say to them every time is, if you love it, it will go with your things. That's what's important. It doesn't matter if it's all one style or whatever. Make it an eclectic mix, but if you love it, it will all work together. It will. Promise you it will all work together.
Where do you get all of your inventory? And I mean, you mentioned, the festival there. Yeah. I mean, are you a garage sale, flea market kind of a?
I am also I have a truck that has an ungodly number of miles on it every year because I am always in it on the hunt for, amazing things. And I will drive pretty much up and down the Eastern Seaboard looking for things. Some people come to me with things. They're cleaning out a house, maybe cleaning out a parent's house. And they're saying, we have these sofas. Would you be interested? So people will approach me as well. But more than anything, I am constantly looking on Marketplace and looking at, flea markets and estate sales and just about anywhere I can drive in a day is where I will go. And I have gone as far west as the Midwest. Like this very cool pendant right above us, that came from a picking trip to the Midwest. And the funny thing is when I found that, I was like, I'm going to hang that in my shop someday. And this was years ago.
And here
I
it
had
is.
no clue what I'm like. And my fiance at the time was like, why is there a giant white pendant light in the back of your pickup truck? Like, because it's going in my shop someday. And he's like, all right, where are we going to put it in the meantime, right? And sure enough, here it is. And so, so I love the thrill of the hunt.
I've heard that there's like this big market for Florida.
Yeah.
That you've got a number of fairly affluent folks that have retired to Florida. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now they perhaps lived in that mid-century world, and they may have decorated stuff, but typically they're the ones that are going to have the more substantial, the more solid, the more
there's good stuff down there,
real furniture. Mm-hmm. And then when they move on, whether it be to assisted living or pass on or something like that, it's just, sort of like, hey, there's a treasure trove of stuff that goes. And I've heard that there's a number of people that will bring that back up north.
And the funny thing is, somebody taught me this probably 25 years ago when I first started to get into antiques. He said, really what happens is the same inventory just passes up and down the East Coast. I said, what? He goes, just watch. You'll see something that'll start in Florida and end up in Massachusetts eventually. Then it'll come back down. So it's just kind of like this super highway of, vintage and antiques that goes up and down the East Coast. And sure enough, he was right. So yes. And to me, that speaks to the sustainability of this stuff once again, because if it wasn't made well, it could not hold up to that kind of
go to the
passing along. And then and what I don't want is for all this beautiful stuff to end up in the landfill. Again, because of sustainability, you want to be able to decorate in a way that, keeps this stuff out of our landfills and our dumps and sort of dampens down that sort of fast fashion, fast furniture kind of thing. So,
and taking it to landfill fills up the landfill. It doesn't crush really easy.
Correct. It's going to take like 500 years for some of this stuff to decompose. And so, let's use it. Let's enjoy it. I mean, the people, particularly in this time period, these folks knew how to have fun. Mm-hmm. They knew how to have, where else are you going to find a coffee table that has a built-in beer cooler in it? Like, have you seen it over there?
I've not seen that, but yeah. No, some of the stuff
I'll have
that
to show you. There's a coffee table over there in the style of Milo Bauman. I couldn't find the mark, but I'm pretty sure it is. And it has an inset in it that is a beer cooler. It has wine storage on the side and magazine and book storage on the other side.
Well, I remember my grandmother's house with the television console sets, and the stereo on the top that lifted over, and then another one lifted over, and it was like a liquor cabinet, and it was just this big, huge piece of furniture.
No, they knew how to have fun, and again, they were kind of coming out of that post-war. They were in that post-war time period, and organically, this movement kind of grew where they wanted to kind of calm the chaos and focus on what's important, which are our relationships with other people, and just focus on families and friends and gathering. And to me, I feel like we're in that place again, And so this time period, I believe that one of the reasons it appeals so much to the younger generations is because it brings people together again.
It just also dawned on me that I think also the younger generation that is coming in here and appreciating this is something that they didn't live with.
Right.
They live with the crap that their parents have.
Yeah.
And maybe if my mom wanted to give me this, the table with the metal banding around the side and the Formica top, whether I would have been like, yeah, no.
Yeah, I know. But see, it's great for that age group, but for the older age group, it's nostalgia and it's coming in and it's feeling good again. And I can't tell you how many people come in here of a certain age and are like, this was my home. Oh my God. And they get a little emotional. And to me, that makes me feel good. And I say, like, it's kind of the furniture version of comfort food. When you walk in here and you recognize and you remember, when things were simpler. And
true. What's your favorite piece in here right now? I mean,
that's like picking a favorite kid.
No, it's not.
Okay. I would have to say the Arnvader gentleman's cabinet over there is my favorite because its design is so exquisite. The way it has tambour doors and they disappear as you open up, and then the drawers on the left there, they all slide out. So originally that was designed to be a gentleman's wardrobe, basically. So you would fold your shirts and your undershirts and whatever and put it on those shelves that slide out. And then sweaters and pants and whatever would be folded and put on the right. And it's so exquisite that when the doors are closed, you don't see the micro cuts that are made in the door that allow it to bend. But when you run your hand over it, you can feel them. Like, oh my gosh, this is just exquisite furniture. It's exquisite. So that's my favorite, my number one favorite right now.
Not the lamp overhead?
Not the lamp overhead, but I have a couple of, so this guy's one of my favorites too. That's the only thing in the store that's not for sale.
Now, is that that's Easy Rider?
That's Easy Rider.
Yeah.
And when I found it, it wasn't framed, and it's Peter Fonda on chopper, and it was labeled as cool vintage motorcycle print. And I was like,
as it is.
Yeah. It's also Peter Fonda in Easy Rider on chopper, and I'll take it. But only the last couple of words were out loud. The rest of it was like, oh my goodness. So I had it framed and put it up here, and I love the vibe of it. And a lot of what I strive to do here is create a vibe. It's like, I want it to feel like a great place to come in and hang out. And honestly, there are times when I'm in here and I'm at my desk and I look up and there are people sitting down in the different, what I call them rooms, the different rooms around here, just catching up, just chatting. And I'm like, this is what I wanted. I want to bring people together. I feel like, there's so much division right now. And this, right? And this country, we're so divided. And the thought that we can't sit down around a table together at Thanksgiving because of our political views just like breaks my heart. So one of the things that's super important to me that I do, you will always see a kitchen table in here. You will always see a kitchen table in my inventory because
that's the nucleus of the family.
Right. And, nothing against interior designers and architects, but I am not a fan of the kitchen island. To me, the kitchen island, it puts everybody in a row. You're not making eye contact really. Just sort of sitting next to each other at a lunch counter and you're eating. When you're sitting down around a table, you have to look at each other and talk to each other, and you're coming together. And how many new homes have a space for a kitchen table? They don't. They have these islands. And, look at this big, well, yeah, I love to cook and I love to spread out and make a mess when I'm cooking, but I don't want to eat there.
Sure.
That's just my personal opinion. And so as divided as we are, I feel like we need bigger tables. We need bigger tables.
And bigger kitchens.
Bigger kitchens. Although some of the kitchens around here are enormous.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned market weekends a couple times. Tell me about that.
So Local by Design, one weekend a month, typically the last weekend of the month, but that does shift around a little bit. We open, everybody here, all of the vendors and artists here, we all open up for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We are open Wednesday through Friday for 10 to 5, but then we kind of put on a big show and invite everybody in once a month.
That's when I stumbled in a couple of weeks ago.
That's when you were here, right?
And the band was here, and everybody was.
And we have a lot of fun events planned where we're bringing people in to shop, but also to have an experience, because it really is an experience. You wander through here, not just in my shop, but in everybody's spaces around here in Local by Design. I always tell people, like, you're going to need to make more than one lap around here because there's just a lot to see.
There is. I mean, this is not, I mean, the area is a destination.
Yeah.
But, you've got to go through. We've got artists that, in painting, we've got woodworkers. There's
something for everybody here. It's amazing. There's so much deep talent in Annapolis, and this is just another expression of it. Like, look at all the amazing things that are created here or curated here, and just get out here and experience it and come on out. So,
well, you've got a website, shopsagevintage.com, which
yes, it's under construction.
You've got the hammers and the screwdrivers out and everything else right now. But you are huge on Instagram as well as on Facebook, and you just want to look for Sage Vintage.
Shop Sage Vintage. That's right. Sage Vintage on Instagram and Facebook. And you'll see a lot of, I work hard to try to get all my current inventory up. I do the best that I can.
So don't scroll too far because that stuff's probably gone.
Yeah, probably. But if you see something there that you want and you love, just message me. And we're open Wednesday through Friday, but I can also be available for appointments. So if you see something you love, you can just let me know.
Well, Beth, what's the most surprising thing that what would surprise most people as they walk into Sage Vintage here?
Other than seeing things from their childhood, I think the most surprising thing is that it's set up almost like a home, where I think people, when they walk into a store, they're expecting a certain experience. And the way I've designed it in here is that there's almost individual rooms in here without walls. But if you look around, and my thought was always make it look like somebody just left the room. And to me, that makes it super inviting. So people come in and, like I said, they put their hands on things and they sit down and they chat and they, flip through books and then they just chill and look at the vintage vinyl that's in here. And I think, to me, that's very unexpected because they're used to mall shopping and walking in and seeing something in Crate and Barrel and what have you. But this is an experience. This isn't like a retail store so much as you come in here, you experience it, and then you get to take part of it home if you want.
Well, the one thing I do like is that it's not, I'm not walking into the store going, oh, I like this little Bulldog tape dispenser, but do you have it in a darker brass?
No, it's the only one. That's right.
That's what it is.
And I think that's part of the appeal too, is that you're going to have something that nobody else is going to have. And people will walk into your home and go, oh my God, where'd you get that?
It's mine.
That's right. It's mine. It's the only one, and I have it. But you can't go like, oh yeah, I know that's Serena and Lily chair in blue. You will not have that reaction. And to me, that goes back to expressing who you really are.
Absolutely.
Expressing your individuality.
Well, I will say that your passion really just comes through as far as what this is, and
thank you,
and what you've built here at Sage Vintage. I think. Anybody, if you want an experience, and it's not a shopping trip, it's an experience to come out, check it out. Sage Vintage is at 1805 C Virginia Street Avenue.
Yes, a street. There's plenty of parking out front.
Yeah, there's a lot of parking out front, and it's pretty easy to park on the street in this section.
Yeah. And I always tell everybody we're right across from In Home Stone. A lot of folks in town know where In Home Stone is. I'll give a shout out to them as well.
Okay, and if you're
going down the street from Third Eye Comics, a lot of people know that.
Right, so, if you're heading toward West Street on Chinkopin, just past Third Eye Comics. If you're heading from West Street toward Forest, it's like just before.
We're just the best kept secret in Annapolis right now.
Let's change that up.
Let's, please. I would love to.
Let's do that, and make sure you check out this end of the month markets. Look for them. We'll make sure that we have them on Eye on Annapolis to make sure that everybody knows when they're coming up. But those are an awful lot of fun.
They are.
Because there's like free booze. I mean,
there's free booze. There's some free food. We usually have some, light appetizers sitting out, and, just come and relax and bring your friends or your family, reconnect, and do a little shopping.
Awesome. Sage Vintage. You want to look them up on Facebook? You want to look them up on Instagram? And as soon as the construction's done, you want to go to shopsagevintage.com.
That's right. I hope everybody comes out and experiences all the amazing things that are here. A lot of times people don't think about the design district as a shopping destination, but I want to change that. And this is the source for mid-century modern in Annapolis. You don't have to go to DC. You don't have to go to Baltimore, you can find it in here. And, come on out and enjoy yourself and maybe take something home that you love.
Thanks for listening to this week's Local Business Spotlight. Please make sure to visit eyeonannapolis.net for all your local news, events, and opinion. And in case you haven't already, please subscribe to the Eye on Annapolis Daily News Brief, where we bring you all the day's local news direct to your phone, tablet, or computer in about 10 minutes. It comes to you at 6 a.m. every Monday through Friday, and you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.